we're building the SWIFT for carbon, enabling reliable data to move between different systems in different borders.
Taking knowledge and then turning it into a business advantage. Like you say doing the right thing, but it's really about business advantage at the end of the day.
Carbon becomes the third factor of trade. After price and quality comes carbon. And if you don't have visibility, if you have costs you're not aware of.
Hello, I'm Joy Macknight, Transaction Banking and Payments Editor at Treasury Payments. And we're here in the TTP studios in London. And I have with me Naama Avni Kadosh, who's Director of the Partnership for Carbon Transparency, or PACT, at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Naama, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful.
Well, it's such an interesting topic, so I'm so glad that you could join us. Where are we in 2026 when it comes to carbon data? Are we still in the reporting phase, or has this become something that's operational for business?
Yeah, it's actually quite of a timely question, I would say, because I would say that 2026 is quite of a transition year for different reasons of how the market is operating these days. So in the vast majority of what we see today with companies, we're still very much in reporting, but we see the leading edge, the really innovators moving into truly incorporating carbon data on the corporate and product level into operational decisions, whether it's into procurement decisions, whether it's into their R&D to greenify their product portfolio, to get access to green loans, to comply with CBAM or other carbon adjustment mechanisms. So it's really becoming more of data and intel, a business intel, than just a compliance exercise. In 2026, I believe will be the year we really see that gap between those that are leading and really taking the advantage of having that data as a commercial asset versus those that are just ticking a box for compliance and reporting.
Excellent. So what is PACT? And is it fair to describe it as infrastructure? And not just sort of a sustainability initiative?
Yeah, well, PACT is quite of a unique in the role of carbon data ecosystem. Let me take the time to explain. So let's face the reality as it is today, and it's brutal, but it's a fact that most corporate reporting or sustainability financial reporting today is not accurate. It's based on estimates. It's based on industry averages, global averages, and we're actually evaluating companies based on a proxy today, which is quite something that in the financial world we will never accept, right? You will never evaluate a company based on their industry average assets. You will look into their own specific business. And this is exactly the problem PACT is trying to solve. We want to move away from proxies and empower companies and the market to have accurate data they can trust and rely on to make different types of decisions. We do this on a product level because this is where carbon really is. Carbon is embodied in the products we build and in the products we buy. Materials we buy from our suppliers come with carbon. There were emissions that were emitted to the atmosphere to build those products. So this is where carbon really is. So we call it product carbon footprint, PCF. And this is where we operate on the PACT level. But it's not enough. For this to work at scale, supply chains are global and consist of companies in all sizes, in different industries, across different borders. For this to work, we need a reliable infrastructure that enables this trusted data to move. We need the pipes. So think about SWIFT, for example. What SWIFT did for money, we knew what money is. We had transactions happen before, but it was not scaled. It was extremely expensive, and it was prone to mistakes. This is exactly what we're trying to solve. We're building the SWIFT for carbon, enabling reliable data to move between different systems in different borders. So once it's calculated, a product is accounted in a supplier in China is then moving to a buyer in Europe, and everybody trusts the data to incorporate it into the decisions of the company.
Excellent. That sounds so fascinating, and I think it's solving a real-world problem. So I think it's really good. So why would you say this is really becoming important for trade, treasury, and transaction banking specifically?
Ugh, it's so critical. And the fact that I'm happy to be here. I'm so grateful to have that ability to speak that story to this audience because it's so critical. And those that are not aware, even I would say late to the game. So let me explain that. And let me shift to one type of thinking. When you hear product carbon footprint, you need to hear cost variable. This is a cost factor. Because as you buy products and you sell products, whether it's locally with carbon pricing and carbon markets happening in so many jurisdictions and growing rapidly, and whether you import it and you have the CBAM that we all hear about, which is the European tax on imports.
So I'll just say it's the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism.
Exactly. And it's the first of many. We can elaborate on that with pleasure. That means that what the emissions that are in the product we buy comes with a cost, comes with a price. So in a way, carbon becomes the third factor of trade. After price and quality comes carbon. And if you don't have visibility into the carbon in your own products and you based on corporate level global emissions, you're in the darkness. You have costs you're not aware of. And with carbon markets shaping and improving and prices are going up, you have a risk you're not even aware of. And that's relevant for CFOs, for corporates. It's relevant for banks. It's relevant for trade finance, any supply chain financing. There's a lot of risks there that is a cost line you're just not aware of right now. So this is the time really to look into this.
Okay, so what is actually live today in terms of companies, suppliers, and data flowing through PACT?
Yes. So today, based on 2025 data, more than 5,000 organizations are using PACT. There are more than 52 actually, solution providers, software solutions that are connected to PACT. What does that mean? These are carbon accounting softwares that different companies use different software. It's an open market, but they speak the same language and they're able to exchange, to transfer the data between them. Think of it as the internet of product carbon footprint, right? If you use, I don't know, Gmail, I use Outlook, we can still send emails to one another. That's because there's a technical infrastructure behind that. It enables that. That is what PACT did for product carbon footprint. So we de facto built the largest network of product carbon footprint in the world that exists today. More than 4 million product carbon footprint has been calculated in line with the PACT methodology and through the PACT pipelines. But before we celebrate that, we're very proud of that achievement. And as I said, the biggest network alive, it's still a drop in the water. And I want to be very clear. There's still a lot of work to do. And millions of PCF product carbon footprint is great, but we need billions. There are billions of products out there. But what's, let's say, very inspiring about that infrastructure and how it works, that it has the network effect. Because one supplier supplies to more than one customer, right? If one customer, for example, one buyer aligns to a methodology and asks all their suppliers, reduces the cost of doing so. This is very important to understand that today the pressure is on with CBAM, with DPP, with buyers asking for procurements. Suppliers are getting those requests today. And at this time, they need to comply with each one of them separately. It's a separate exercise. I hear of companies with 10 FTEs just to report to their clients' requirements. This is not sustainable. This is not scalable. This is why we need this one infrastructure that creates this interoperability, not only to make the data accessible, but reduce the cost of doing so. To be fair, to focus the investment not on getting the data, but actually doing the action we need and growing our business.
Excellent. All right. And I also want to ask really about how this intersects with trade policy, and you've mentioned CBAM already, but digital product passports, for example, and then also cross-border compliance.
Yes, exactly. And this is just the beginning. So CBAM is the first. And I can share that I speak to a lot of companies across the world. It makes the market move. So I like that. That's good. We're going into something that is more tangible and more relevant to the business, but it's just the beginning. There are more than 70 different jurisdictions in the world that are either launching carbon pricing or introducing new CBAMs. So Canada, UK, Brazil are all looking to launch their own CBAM equivalent. That's why I'm saying that carbon is becoming a piece of trade. It's not going anywhere. We're just at the beginning. But here's the problem it brings as well, which we at this point just need to acknowledge. Every single one of these, let's call it data package. Okay, so CBAM require you to get data from your supplier. So it has to be traceable from your supplier. It cannot be global averages, and package it in the way that they defined as relevant for that filing. It's different than a PACT product carbon footprint, for example, and it's different than what Brazil would come in for CBAM. And it's a little bit different than a DPP, the digital product passport. And that is, at the moment we are today, inevitable. Because it's like SWIFT. They do not go to different countries and tell them how to manage their national financial systems. They created the interoperability between them. And that's exactly another reason why we need this infrastructure that enable that, because at the end of the day, suppliers export to different regions. They will have to comply with different CBAMs. And that's just not sustainable the way that it works today. And that's why we need that infrastructure. DPP, the same. Even today, GS1, for example, have embedded PACT as the methodology for carbon, because now, once DPP will go out, every European product will help to carry that emission data on a product level. And to do so, we need to speak the same language, because data that is not comparable is not useful. And data that is not trusted and reliable is not useful. Now, the question, is it for what? Is it for compliance to a tax? Is it to get access to your loan and get a low interest rate for a green loan? So it's different use cases, but at the same time, it's the same underlying data we need. And that's exactly the role we're trying to play. So we're saying we're not there yet, but we have the infrastructure to get there, and we understand where the market is going. And this is a very much a trade challenge, and I would say market access challenge, even more so than sustainability challenge.
I think that's so interesting. And obviously, you're talking about that interoperability within that infrastructure layer, et cetera. Fragmentation that's happening in the market. Do you see that there'll be more harmonization in these regulations going forward, do you think? Or it does take a long time to get there, but, are they already starting to think about that, I guess, is my question.
I would say yes and no. So there is a notion that there is a need for harmonization. But in fact, because we're talking about different use cases, it's inevitable that will be fragmentation between them. China, for example, is coming up with different product carbon footprint standards for different products. Okay, and that's fine. Which is completely different than the CBAM package, for example. But that's why we are leaning into. So instead of saying, okay, let's all come together and speak and get to one language we all agree on, which will take us 15 years, we say, okay, for the first, let's say, decade, let's lean into fragmentation through interoperability. Let's create that translation layer in between. And that's why, for example, we just launched a month ago a CBAM working group for PACT, where we bring together our community, which is the strength of WBCSD, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. We have access to so many multinationals across different regions coming together with their suppliers, saying, okay, we all lean into product carbon footprint. We are the leaders in the market. We have the product carbon footprint. How are we bridging to CBAM to make sure? Think of a vision. You calculate once. You bring in data. It's all the same underlying really primary data coming from your own operation and supply chain, just repackaged into different packages, whether it's a CBAM, whether it's a loan, whether it's your internal decisions for procurement, it doesn't matter. I use the term clickety-click because this is the world we want to build, where it's just you put it in and it just automatically creates those. And this is where data and software comes in. But for that to work at scale, you need that trustable pipe in the middle. So I don't see harmonization happening in the near future. I see interoperability happen. That is definitely possible. And as time goes by, more from a use case perspective. So maybe the border taxes will become closer and closer, but it will still be different, as it should be, to a decision on what is the data package you require to choose the right supplier for your new product portfolio, for example. And that is okay. So because if we focus on the why we need data, I would always go there because it's a business exercise more than anything. And when you want to make a decision, you want to understand what is the data you need. And that's the infrastructure we're trying to build for.
Excellent. So, of course, what we always like to do is have a sort of a practical outcome for our listeners. So what do you, what do you think anyone listening, what should they do? What can they actually do? And then where do they start?
Yeah. Thank you for asking me this question. This needs to be an operational, pragmatic exercise. This is not for the sake of talking, it's for walking. So it all comes down to, do you have visibility into the risk you already have and the growing risk that is coming tomorrow? How do you do that? Let's start with corporates, finance teams, treasury, CFOs. Ask the person in your company that is in charge of your scope 3 carbon accounting upstream, and ask them not what is the number, how much emissions do we have in scope 3, but ask them, how are we calculating it? Based on what data are we calculating it? At that moment, that answer, based on everything we talked to today, you will know the level of, let's say, visibility you even know. Is there risk? You don't even know if there's risk. Are you exposed to CBAM? You don't know at this point. You don't know how badly or good your situation is. If you are in, let's say, trade finance, go into your portfolio. What share of your portfolio is currently getting verified product level carbon data? I can assume it's low. You have a role there. Their, let's say, blindness is yours. Where they don't have the visibility, you don't have the visibility. Their risk is your risk. So look into that and start with CBAM. What is the share of your portfolio that is today already exposed to CBAM? Because that is a cost today. It's coming today, and it's just the beginning. If you're in a supply chain finance banks, you are really in that intersection between the buyers and the suppliers. You have an influencing power to move the market to do the right thing. Buyers need that level of data. Suppliers can provide this data. And while it is an investment, it's an investment of turning data that is today a burden, a cost line, just a line in our OPEX, into an asset, into a commercial advantage that now a significant share of your portfolio do not hold. And it's a choice. Yes, it's still voluntary, but those that will come to it fast and early will come out first and will have the negotiating power that comes with that knowledge. So for everybody that listened to this vodcast, this is super valuable and very, very actionable. Start with just knowing where you stand today and then leverage your power and influence to move the market to do the right thing. Move away from averages, move away from estimations to having empowering data to know where the risk is in our supply chain, in our own businesses, in our future growth as well.
Excellent. I love that. Really taking knowledge and then turning it into a business advantage. Like you say doing the right thing, but it's really about business advantage at the
Yes.
end of the day.
Yes.
Mm.
Sustainability is part of our business, which is something we see a lot
Mm.
as sustainability in transitioning from being its own niche thing just for the sake of reporting to being part of all departments. The leading companies have sustainability incorporated everywhere, in finance, in procurement, in R&D, in marketing, in reporting, everywhere. It's just another KPI that is relevant for the business that you cannot ignore. And if you do it well, and if you lean into something that enables that at low cost, like PACT, there's an infrastructure available for you for free. It's an open source for the greater good. Lean in. Such a low-hanging fruit.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your insights, Naama. Thought it was absolutely brilliant. So informative, so interesting. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.